So, Stars fans, the Dallas Stars are now facing elimination, going to Game 6 in St. Louis after dropping Game 5 in Dallas with a score of 4-1. If you didn't know, this is the Two Brothers Mic'd Up show, minus one brother again for the playoffs. But what we do is we go back, review the recent Dallas Stars game, give you some thoughts, and discuss them to you right here on YouTube. We have no scores to give for the prediction that we usually give out towards the end of every video because we had an emergency happen last game. So what we're going to do is I'm going to briefly touch on Game 4, talk about Game 5, and then give a little preview of what the Stars need to do in Game 6. So Game 4, Stars win that in overtime. I thought they came out and they played really well. I thought, it looked like they made the adjustments that they needed to do to play against St. Louis in that game. They rebounded really well after getting drummed 6-1. What I liked about that is that they were cashing in on their opportunities that they were getting. They were pressing a lot. I thought they were taking a little more chances than what they had been in the playoffs against St. Louis. You saw that goal from Fox. We're not even going to touch on that first goal from Tarasenko. I think everyone's seen it about 100 times. SportsCenter, ESPN, TSN, just wherever, all over Reddit and the internet. Bad play. But it just goes to show you that Dallas is, again, weak on defense. It's something that needs to be addressed going into the offseason. I just don't think goaltending is what has been the problem for Dallas in this playoff season. Going into the later parts of Game 4, you saw Dallas, hanging with St. Louis. They just can't make those special teams work for them. They finally get a playoff goal, but then they give up a 4-on-3 penalty kill goal. It's, Stastny is just standing right there in front of the net. No one really on him. Goligoski comes over too late, and the puck is in the back of the net. But then going into overtime, Cody Eakin almost turns it over. Well, I guess he does really turn it over. He could have been the scapegoat of that game, but then turns out to be the hero of the game. Going into Game 5, this is what the review that I have for Game 5 is, that they missed on all of their opportunities except for the Goligoski goal. They didn't defend well. They came out, they skated, really good in the first period. A headline for the game is, since it was a noon start, who was this start going to benefit? Was it going to benefit the legs of the Dallas Stars because they are the faster team, or is it going to benefit the physical side of what St. Louis does? Since they're not as fast, what they'll do is they'll try to stopgap everything. They'll try to muck everything down. No one's really going to have fresh legs. In the first period, it looked like both teams were fresh. They were both skating really well. But then later into the game, you saw that stopgap that St. Louis puts in place. They muck up the neutral zone. They start pressuring so much that Dallas just doesn't know how to react to it. This is where your coaching staff has to come in. This is now the 5th game of the series, so the pressure that they're going to establish, and yet Dallas just has not really had an answer for it. The first game, I think St. Louis underestimated Dallas's speed and the skill that they have. But since then, St. Louis has just applied all sorts of pressures to Dallas's offense, defense, and their goaltending. And what they do is they're just taking liberties against the Stars. It was a very loosely called game. That not a lot of penalties in the game. I think the Stars had 2 penalties. St. Louis had 2 penalties, but it didn't happen towards. It only happened towards the later part of the game, and passing. The simple passes. You watch every game. St. Louis is making these incredible passes, but you know what? Sometimes they're just simple passes. Simple 5-foot, 10-foot passes that make it tape to tape, while Dallas, in I'd say 3 of the games of the series, has had trouble passing the puck. It really looks like a minor league team trying to go up against a professional team, the way that Dallas is set up with their offensive style, going into and trying to break out of their zone. They're hitting skaters too many times in the skates. You go and you watch those games, and they can't make a tape-to-tape pass for the life of them. And when they do, St. Louis is already there to pressure them. We saw, prime examples when Sharp and Eakin get that 2-on-0. Sharp, chips it over to Eakin, and Eakin kind of has to reach out for it because it's not in his wheelhouse. It's not where the pass should have been put. And Eakin has to overextend just a little bit, and then he doesn't get a lot on the puck. Simple passes, getting out of their zone, and just not cashing in on the opportunities that they had. Hemsky had a couple of good looks with one good toe drag, doesn't get anything out of it. Nichushkin, as much as it pains me to say it, he actually had a good game. And this one, it's his first good game of the playoffs, and he wasn't able to cash in on a lot of his moves whenever he was, turning into the net. Like, it's his classic move that he just puts his shoulder down and tries to barrel to the front of the net and couldn't get anything out of it. And then there's one where he's just all alone in the slot, turns around, hits the crossbar. This team is shooting too high. They're hitting a lot of glass behind the net, and they're not getting a lot of chances out of the initial chance that they have. They're not putting it into the dirty area, because we saw in game 4, Jamie Benn keeps the puck down, power move to the front of the net, and in the dirty areas where Sharp picks up on that power play goal. And on Fox's goal, he goes 5-hole. He's keeping it low. Yes, Goligoski scored going top corner, but we're really needing to just get down and dirty with our shot placement, letting deflections happen, crashing the net. There's not a lot of traffic in front of Elliott, as much as I would like. So going into game 6, when you're a coach in game 6, what are you telling your players? I think what Ruff has to say is that, look, our season is on the line. You leave everything out there tonight. You have to play with passion. There is no gliding on the ice. You have to make your passes. You have to cash in on your opportunities. There's just not a lot that this team has shown from the regular season in this series. I think the big standing out point is Jamie Benn. Jamie Benn had was a +5. He was he had 10 points in the first series. I mean, he was affecting every game. In this series, he's not affecting this game. And the thing is that you could just be saying, well, the Blues are playing him hard. They're trying to eliminate him, and that's what they're doing. But a lot of the time is he's not drawing that coverage away from him. He's not really leaving open anybody. It looks like he's trying too hard when it comes to it. He only has 4 points in the series, but he's a -1. So he was a -2 in Game 3 and a -2 in Game 5. He was a plus 2 in Game 2 in the overtime loss. But, I mean, he was out there. He was affecting that game. And it was defensive coverage that failed them in that one. And it's been defensive coverage that has really failed this team when it comes down to it. Another player that is affecting this series is Troy Brouwer. Troy Brouwer has now 3 goals in this series, and when you look at his goals, it's all just right there in front of the net. It's all just little dribblers that he's just getting a little bit of contact with, but since he's not pressured, he's just able to get a little contact and just let it kind of glide into the net. You saw whenever he scored in Game 5 that Demers pinches up. I think he had fallen down in the corner and then just comes out and tries to challenge the man with the puck, but the centerman was already there. Why Demers thinks that he needs to go out and add another man to the St. Louis's man, not too sure, because that leaves Troy Brouwer all alone in this game. Goligoski, Demers have been big disappointments in this playoff series. I think Goligoski is a -4 in this series. He's an overall -6. And you know what? What I've noticed is that Dallas has only won one game that he's scored in. Is that a coincidence? You know what? I really don't think so. I think he's just all around bad luck for this team. I don't like the way he plays. I have not liked him for some time, and I know it's a theme that we have here on this show talking about Goligoski, but there's just not a lot that this guy does right. And when he does do something right, the team just doesn't react the way that you would expect them to, because Goligoski gets that goal and he ties it up, but the team doesn't respond from it. The team starts playing like they were up by 6 goals and they turned very lazy. They the same hustle that they had, they were outshot in that second period 11-6, and only until they were down by 2 goals and going into the third that they responded with a 12-3 shot advantage in the third. The Stars can't play like that. They need to play like every game they're down, which essentially they kind of are. They're behind the 8 ball on every game. And since Game 1, it just has not looked that they were playing in this series like they were ahead. Or, I mean, they always looked like they were playing ahead in this series when they never really have been. They've had one good game, like one really good game, and then the rest of them have all just been kind of mediocre outings from this team. You get the overtime win, which is great. I think that was like the first overtime win out of like the past 5 OT games. I think they were on a really long losing streak dating back some time. But this team has been playing these games like they've been the superior team, and St. Louis has always come out and played them and showed them that they aren't. And Dallas hasn't responded very well to that. Going into Game 6, you're facing elimination. You're going to St. Louis, where you've won 1 game there. St. Louis has now taken 2 in Dallas. You're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to take 1 in St. Louis. Yes, Captain Obvious, we know. But what it is that St. Louis is going to bring their vice grip. They're going to squeeze the life out of the Dallas Stars. And what the Dallas Stars has to do, the coaching staff has to finally get that light bulb scenario to where everything clicks, and you have to understand where the pressure is coming from. It's always puck side pressure They're taking 2, sometimes 3 people to the puck, and they have not been able to expose the Blues with their type of pressure that they bring. Maybe Game 6 is where they understand how to eliminate that pressure by dumping the puck off, but a lot of that pressure, whenever they're trying to do that, they're not making good passes. It's in the feet, it's behind them, it's too ahead of them. It has not been good on a technical side, on a skill side, something that is instilled in hockey players at a very young age is tape passing. You know, you don't really set up a lot of chances whenever you're putting it in the skates of players. So what I look for in Game 6 is I expect Kari to start. If Niemi gets put in net because Kari lost this game, I don't see that being a positive. I think you live and die with Kari. You know, Kari is the one that has gotten you here. It's been proved in this series that goalie changing and everything, that don't do it anymore. I just don't think Niemi is suited very well for this series. I think Kari is the better goaltender for this series. But Kari also has to get better defense. Your special teams has to cash in. That's plain and simple. You know, you've only gotten 1 power play goal. You had 2 power plays yesterday, and you didn't get anything on it. It was a very bad power play. Your penalty kill lets a goal in. You know, your special teams is what, you know, helped propel this team in the regular season, and they just didn't do anything with it. You got to make your passes count. You got to go with speed. You know, you have to cash in on these opportunities. Odd man rushes, you have to cash on it. And we've looked, some people might be saying, but Elliott's been just so good for St. Louis. He has, but that's because Dallas hasn't been too threatening to him. A lot of the chances he's able to poke check away, or their defense is able to get like a stick on it, and it just comes in dribbling on Elliott. A lot of the times it's not as threatening as it looks on the rush. Dallas has to crash the net and crash the net hard. Game 6, a score that I'm going to look for a 4-2 set for Dallas. I don't think Dallas has that mentality to just blow out the St. Louis Blues in the playoffs. Ken Hitchcock has set up a very good defensive structure for this team. You have to eliminate those guys in front of the net. Don't leave anyone in front of the net. Don't take penalties. But then again, they're going to take liberties with you in the game because you're not cashing in on the power play. So you gotta look and find some way to expose this team. If St. Louis wins, I like a score of 4-1. I mean, it's just going to be another blowout style game where Dallas looks hot for a little bit, but then they just look lifeless against that pressure. I know I'm not really saying a whole lot for this team, but if they make those adjustments, it's been a coaching series since I'd say since game 2. Whenever after game 2, and you really saw St. Louis just blow out the Stars in that 6-1, that they made the adjustments, they kept pushing against the Stars. You know, Dallas hasn't responded very well to adversity. Do they respond to this one? It's all on the coach's shoulders right now. I think he has to get something instilled in these players to make them think, to make them look at the opportunities that they're given. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for the discussion. Be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up to date with the videos. Hit the like button. Leave any kind of feedback down below. Remember, this is a show for fans, by fans, and as always, tune in next time.